Welcome to eCast. This is a video cast for entrepreneurs, angels, in the digital world. And today we are back again with YunSil. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We are going to be co-hosting with a series of topics on corporates and bridging to startups,
Yes.
as well as funding rounds,
Yes.
everything from partnership to revenue generation, and how corporates and startups can work together, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Today it's going to be a conversation between the two of us, sort of see how are the insights, what are some of the informations that we can get out of before tonight's event.
Yes.
You've got an event tonight.
Yeah,
Do you want to
we've got
talk,
yes.
tell us a little bit?
So we've got an event tonight. So my company Moaar is coordinating with Eversheds, which is an international law firm with around 68 offices worldwide. They're focused right now in a lot of tech companies and startups, and we're organizing a workshop titled Early Fundraising, the Trends and Risks, because I think there's been a lot of movements, a lot of trends have been shifting from the traditional route of the pre-seed, seed round, and definitely we've seen a lot of problems that have emerged from that and things to be careful about. And we'll be speaking with a lawyer from Eversheds, and we've got from an investment company, Incubest. And then we also have another advisory company called Legal Notes. They're based in Europe. They'll be joining via Skype.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about, Legal Notes focus more on the trendier side of fundraising, the STOs and ICOs.
Yeah.
And the trend has been really, really good in Europe.
And there's also a lot of terms coming out, right? Because you've got
It confuses everybody.
Yeah.
And why all the abbreviation, right? Like IDOs, ICOs, STOs, and they're like, it's very. But if you break it down, it's all very simple terms, right?
Yeah.
And I believe, so traditionally all these ICOs, STOs, and IEOs are meant for bigger projects or companies who already has a lot of assets and they want to securitize those assets through tokens.
Yeah.
Which is what it was traditionally meant for. But the way it is that, and startups are starting to adopt that fundraising model, and it really works because when you talk about tech companies, their assets are pretty much digitalized in whatever platform. It's pretty transparent.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it really attractive for them. So we'll be talking from the aspect of the newer side of fundraising, but still there are definitely.
So by newer, do you mean like crypto related?
Yes,
that would be the alternative sort of fundraising strategy. Because I know some of the guests that you're bringing on board, it's not just about crypto, right? You've got everything from lending to equity raise as well.
Yes.
And it's an interesting topic because I think there's a lot of talk about how the VC model, the traditional VC model is broken, right?
Yes.
And that is why people are sort of exploring sort of different alternative ways of fundraising.
Yes, and it's actually more exciting because the way that I would put it is that, so if you, let's say, talk about the ICOs, you're raising utility tokens. So imagine it's a bit like a pre-sale. It's a crowdfunding, but you put it in tokens, right? Instead of giving away equity in small shares, which are essentially the same thing, but it is definitely more costly and expensive to do.
Yeah.
But once you do it, once you issue your tokens on an exchange, and we're issue to not even an exchange, but you are able to distribute these tokens around, subsequent fundraising would be amazing, right?
Okay, so let's not give away too much.
Okay, sure.
In the next couple sessions, we will be bringing more guests to explain what are the different modes of fundraising and how do you get it. Do you always have to fundraise, right?
Sometimes absolutely not.
With the right partnership, you could easily have generated enough revenue to sustain your business. That is why I think the interesting dynamic between startups and corporates, it's something that can be very well explored.
Yes.
And especially in the areas where the new sort of blockchain space, because people had just figured out, or at least a small section of the population had just figured out what blockchain means. But now, like all the new terms, exchange and wallets and ICOs and STOs, like what do they exactly mean? So I think it would take a little bit more, like let's break it down in the next couple sessions, and so that our audience will be able to be more palatable.
Yes. I mean, it really took me a while to understand as well. It's
Yeah.
definitely a new concept. It's like just when the internet boom started, right? I
Yeah.
don't think anybody really understood.
I mean, you know what internet was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or land,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, what is land? Like, what is guan? And I remember back in the 90s where we were studying, like, these definitions were kind of like put together and we had to memorize it. Today is widely used, but
Yes.
and I have no doubt that in the blockchain world, that is kind of how it will evolve in the future. People are gonna look back and was like, why did people even struggle understanding what the meaning of blockchain was?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
exactly.
everyday life
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah, I remember. So we have a CTO in our company, right?
Yeah.
Called Giovanni, and he wrote I think a white paper on decentralized cryptocurrencies before Bitcoin came out. So he really had this whole insight. He loves the blockchain technology. I mean, that's why he's heading this blockchain company, right? And he told me that I told him, can you just put it really simplify what blockchain
Like
really
explain
means?
to me like a 3-year-old.
Exactly. And he told me, so imagine this, when internet came out, it was abundance. Internet is abundance of data. You have data everywhere, right? Blockchain is opposite. It's scarcity of data because you put them in an ecosystem, you link them up in the chain, right? So it's really a whole movement of how it's a very fundamental change in everything that operates. And we're looking at the crypto in one side. And I remember when I was in law school, I had to write a paper on the Bitcoin before the Bitcoin boom happened. Back then, it was only worth like not like like less than $100
cents or something, dollars and cents.
And people were, and then there was. I remember I was reading this article, and it was years ago in London, and the article was about how Bitcoin came about, but then the value crashed and Bitcoin is gonna go away. It was a very negative article. And
but how were you looking at it? I'm interested in that space because as a law student, how were you guys looking at the crypto sort of Bitcoin world? What was the perception back then? Was it like a fraud, or was it more like a opportunity?
We thought it was a fraud. It's gonna fail. It's not gonna work. No legislative bodies, no countries will ever endorse it. That's why we wrote it. We had very negative things to say about it. And see, that's why lawyers shouldn't. They're the worst.
They shouldn't be invested in crypto.
I mean, they're the worst. I mean, it's statistically found that lawyers make the worst businessmen because they're very, they're very
risk averse. They're very compliant. They want to be like,
exactly.
But then I would actually argue the other side would say I think lawyers might make good businessmen because they understand the law and the regulations. So because it's part of their work, right? So they actually are able to maneuver the sort of waves of different the regulatory framework to serve in their advantage. But and use them as a tool.
I mean, that's absolutely right. But if you think about the Uber and how it all started, all these disruptive mega companies, I think this saying is right in saying that it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission, right? So you just go ahead and do it. And then, I mean, because any companies that, I mean, especially the unicorns or, I mean, even if it's not unicorn, you gotta be disruptive. You gotta do something that's different than others. And I think lawyers tend to be, they will try to look at every angle possible to comply with any regulations, laws, or anything out there.
Do you think that lawyers, I mean, it's a job hazard, right? You do have to be very careful and not to break the law and be compliant and everything. But do you think that they spend too much time sort of planning in the planning phase as opposed to actually doing it?
You mean when they come into business?
When they try to start businesses, or if you bring a lawyer to your startup, are they like spending a lot of time just planning as opposed to doing?
I do work of fair share with lawyers. The lawyers that I tend to work with tend to be very entrepreneur-minded. They're not the traditional, normal lawyers, right? So they're always willing to go out and network. They're always willing to explore different opportunities, right? So they're even willing to give. I mean, one thing, I've spoken to a lot of successful lawyers, who make partners at young age, and I've spoken to some lawyers who get stuck in I've seen it. I've stuck in those.
Your 70-year-old lawyer who's still being
the worst, in their late 30s and 40s, and they're still associates or even worse than that, right? So I've seen all those, but what I find is that those who are really good at their job, I mean, meaning they sit in their desk and they do all the paperwork so amazing, they actually tend to not go so much forward compared to the ones who are never in their desk. They're always going out to this networking, giving a lot of free legal advice. It's always
I like
the key.
that part of
Yeah.
the hustler,
Yes.
right? Because you've got the guy that sits on the desk,
Yeah.
and that is generally the guy. So, are you saying that lawyers need to step out more and like network more and see
Yeah,
what the real world?
definitely,
Because that is
definitely.
what that is. Would you think that there's a correlation there in terms of not being bounded by your desk and being to go out, your ability to progress through your career is much
Yeah.
faster?
Absolutely. Because, I mean, it really, because traditionally, normal law, if you talk like 20 years back,
Yeah.
it would normally be that there used to be so many clients, right? And fewer law firms.
Yeah.
That if you join a team, a really good team, and you stay in that team, stick around for like 10 years in the same law firm, they'll kind of nurture you up, right?
Yeah.
So they'll sort of hand you the clients, they'll give you the support.
And if you have the big brand,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Like if you got like the big law firm
Yeah.
sort of branding behind you, like people come to you.
Yeah.
But at large, I think if you look at
Yeah.
the Singapore context, you've got everything from like the smaller one lawyer person to like a SME.
The boutique firms.
Yeah.
But if you look at the traditionally now, I mean, that was a traditional model of how you go from trainee to a partner. But now if you look at it, you gotta create your own value. I mean, that's why I think that's what Jack and Jonathan talked about earlier, that you gotta have the value, right?
For those that don't know who Jack and Jonathan
Yeah.
are, we had a different segment earlier on. We were recording about digital marketing and transformation for students and startups. And they were talking about specifically the section
Yes,
that
yes.
you do need to have real life experiences.
Yes.
And by that, I think they were referring more in the context of university students to
Yes.
startups. But what
Yes.
you're referring to is the corporates
Yeah, the
to the
corporate.
startups, which is a very good sort of contrast to that segment, right? Where you talk about people who have been employed and that mindset. I think we refer to the cost, your ability, how expensive does it get? The longer you take and the older
Yeah,
you
absolutely,
get to
yeah.
getting into the real world and gaining real experiences as a
Yeah.
startup founder, right? So is that what you're referring to? Like if you are at a younger age in your 20s, in your early 30s, like if you don't step out of your desk, you're constantly like you can get good salary, but your cost of taking risks in the future would become more and more expensive.
It's more expensive, and you always gotta constantly, it's self-development, right?
Yeah.
Now no one's gonna develop for you. No firm is gonna kind of spoon feed you the clients, the networking opportunities. No one is really gonna. You have to really go out there, and that's not just speaking from the legal industries, right? You can also apply that to banking, a lot of consultancy.
Or
Because
any business.
Any businesses now, especially more so now.
People think that I'm an IT expert, so I don't need to step out of my desk.
Yeah.
That's not true. That you need to go there, like
Yeah.
you should always be like that. Entrepreneurial mind
Yeah.
is something that we work a lot with founders,
Yeah.
but also founding teams. People
Yes.
who didn't think that hustling is a necessity. It's becoming more and more a reality.
Yes.
Especially in the context of lawyer. Like in my impression, back then was I deal a lot with bankers, and today bankers and lawyers. But today I also still deal a lot with lawyers. I would think that a lawyer, having built that years of experience and everything, is about getting that bar, right? Getting the bar.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's no longer like that. Is that what we're referring to?
It's really-
How important is having the bar?
Having the bar is a necessity, right? You gotta pass the bar. It's
Yeah.
not like in the suits.
Yeah.
You gotta pass the bar to practice. You gotta have that, definitely the minimum requirement of, you gotta understand the law. If you're practicing privacy, you gotta understand the privacy law, right? I mean, all these are absolute necessity, but what's gonna make you stand out, even to your partners, your team, your law firm, or to anybody and of your clients, you have to go out and really try to see. I mean, join the networking events. Even if it may not, you may think that that's not within my job scope. Everything is within your job scope to promote yourself and promote whatever law firm that you're working for.
But I'm wondering
Yeah.
because it's a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
And it's about like, do you become more specialized, like getting the bar
Yes.
and having that certification, that
Yes.
qualification,
Yes.
or do you build your network and hustle more and then look at the opportunities and then pay somebody who has the bar Like what
I
would
think
be
that is,
from a lawyer perspective? I just want to get your insights.
I think that's a really interesting point because Legal Knows, who is also a participating company in today's workshop, is basically a decentralized law firm, right?
Yeah.
So what it means is that they're actually run by quite a number of lawyers. So their team has, I think, about the founder is a lawyer.
Yeah.
The co-founder is also a lawyer.
Yeah.
And they have got some tech people, and they have some other lawyers working in their team. But they're not a law firm, right? So what they do is that they go out there and market, with the tech companies or any startups or any other companies require, because they specialize in SDOs and ICOs in this blockchain space. So whatever clients that they get, they can give a preliminary advice. I mean, it's not a law firm, so they cannot, represent you in court or anything, but they can still give you advice but like any other law firm.
Well, they will give you a suggestion, because that's what we used to do, right?
Yeah.
As bankers, we weren't in a position to give concrete legal advice or taxation advice or anything about the regulation at all. But you would have been exposed to a good number of like lawyers and service providers and CopSec people who are experts in those fields, who are qualified and they are credited for that.
Yes.
However, there is a long cycle to get into that person from the customer's perspective and creating the opportunity, the engagement between the specialist and the customer, right? And that middle guy, which traditionally is done all by the same person, today is actually broken down into the person that generates the pipeline. And there's money to be made there. So for people who have legal degree, but they don't really have the sort of the highest sort of qualifications to be as to declare themselves as the one that we can give advice, right?
Yes.
They can serve very well at identifying opportunities and creating the opportunity for the experts.
Yes, absolutely. So what they normally do is, and I'm not just talking about Legal Notes, there are actually many boutique firms, because these boutique firms are usually, run by a lawyer themselves, but then they don't have that much, they're not going to hire so many, then it's going to be like a law firm, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to hire so many lawyers and to do all the paper. So they refer to a law firm and they get the referral fee from there.
Well, you manage your cost.
Yeah, you manage, and that is really smart. And it really works. That model
because lawyers
really
are
works.
Expensive.
They are really expensive. They are.
Yeah.
But then and then there's that angle, and then you have the new angle of the legal text where you can get a contract from the templates automated, and all these things are happening, right? And legal industry is known to be the slowest and most conservative because everybody kind of wants to like sit down face to face. I gotta see lawyer's face and do that. But now even the legal industry is changing a lot. Right?
But I would also say the legal, and you have a very good point there, is that the legal industry, especially specialized lawyers, they're known to be the least sort of versatile in terms of knowledge for different, and every country, every jurisdiction has a different framework and a different regulation that it's very different from each other.
Yes.
And they're also very similar, right? So does it make sense to bring in a lawyer that specializes in one particular, in Singapore jurisdiction, for instance, versus do I even need a lawyer in my company? Like if I'm managing my costs effectively, if I'm good at what I am, which I understand the basic of law, right? Like you, for example, like you went through law school and everything, but then you wouldn't hire a specialist in your company because there's plenty of firms out there where you can tap on depending on your customer's needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the only time a startup would ever need a lawyer is when you get a term sheet. That is it. Because if you look at anything else, right, the privacy law, GDPR, those are absolutely so important, right? But if you look at, let's say, even personal data protection laws, right, which in Singapore you're not supposed to keep the the photocopy of IC and all that. Those information is available on internet. Go to their website, they'll explain it.
It's Googleable.
It's Googleable. Like anybody can really understand it. Just take it as if they tell you, do not keep a photocopy of IC unless this. As long as you follow that instruction, it's like following a cookbook, right? Just follow it, and that's it.
I mean, if we are used to going online and looking for like a bisque, how to make the best bisque, lobster bisque, right? Why aren't we going online and searching about, how do you be compliant? How do you build a business from the ground up and meet the, fulfill the regulatory frameworks? we should be keeping the habit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just and then they have a lot of those the privacy, the TNC. They have a lot of templates out there that are already compliant with GDPR. They're available for free. Just download it and put it on your website,
Absolutely.
and that's what really. And I've heard of some cases where I remember as a friend. So they went to law firm and they said, I want to get this privacy, because it's so important in our company.
30,000.
And then so they went to a law firm, like a proper
Yeah.
international law firm, right?
Yeah.
And then they got the document back, and then they realized there's like this link, right? You know those the hyperlink in the Word
They
document.
didn't remove it.
No, and then they clicked on it because it's like, why is there a link on the sort of the top TNC that they sent us? So they clicked on it. It was basically TNC for iTunes.
Oh my god.
So they just copy pasted
Yeah.
and just sent it to the client. And I'm sorry to say, but you know what? I'm so sure that not everyone
how much
does.
were they willing to charge?
I
Why would they
think,
ask you
oh
to
my
charge for
god, I think definitely in the four figures. I don't know
wow.
I mean, if they charge five, I don't know how much they actually paid for
Yeah.
it. But I hear these horror stories, and it really happens. Because even for lawyers, they're not. Do you really think that? I mean, I don't blame them for it, because when I worked in law firm, you cannot possibly write every single word.
No.
We have a template that we work on, and that's the reality. And these templates are equally available online. So just go for it. And the only time why I say that you need to get a lawyer for timesheet when you get investments, because sometimes there can be some nasty contracts, right?
No. But like what you mentioned is very, very
Yeah.
critical, right? It's not about legal only. Like financials,
Yeah.
same thing. You can startups can get templates on
Yeah.
everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Like if
absolutely.
you're looking at like how do you put your business together on like financials, the proper way of keeping a book.
And there's
people
so many softwares now, like
exactly.
yeah.
But people don't do it.
And it's really cheap. It's
Yes.
like $20 a month.
And a lot of startups are
Yeah.
raising funds and they're paying big money to high-end professionals, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Like large corporations, and that is burned that they could have used it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And especially in areas of, I mean, not just legal agreements, but
Yes.
like pretty much everything. A legal agreement is a very fundamental need.
Yes.
Because it's everything from the moment you bring in somebody, if there is a exchange of interest,
Yes.
be it financially or equity or anything like that, you would definitely need it to have some terms to be put in place.
Yes.
And that stuff is widely available online. It doesn't
Yes,
matter what
absolutely.
jurisdiction you
Yeah.
are looking at.
Yeah. That is why one of the advice that many advisors will give you is that, okay, even if you go for a timesheet,
Yeah.
try to make it as simple as possible, because actually the longer it is,
Oh yeah,
it's
so
more
dragging.
the more danger that probably lurks around, right?
Yeah.
So try to make it as simple as possible, right? And less is more sometimes. You don't need
Less is more everything.
Yeah, less is
I'm
more
a
in every-
minimalist.
Yes.
So everything from my house to like the
Yeah.
way that I run my business to our projects and everything, I like to keep it clean and simple.
Absolutely.
There's a saying that the more complicated, and it's just like exactly going in line with what you said, is that you tend to allow more opportunities for people to come in and dig holes on it. And I think this is the fundamental part about being a startup founder. You really want to keep it as clear and as simple as possible.
And also there's another thing that when another sort of the risk that you have when you fundraise is that after you fundraise, there's definitely a pressure and expectation. You have to increase your cost, right?
Yeah.
You have to increase your staffs, the size. But I think that's the thing. I think it's better sometimes. I mean, even for you and I, it's better sometimes to wait until your company is at least running some revenue and profit.
So bootstrapping, is that what you're saying? Like bootstrapping their revenue?
I mean, even in my case, I'm working with a partner who's taking charge of all the technical side. So that really doesn't give me a lot of cost that, I need to burn, right? I mean, and I try to keep it as simple, because it's better to have a great partner. Like, spend your energy trying to find the right partners, right? or trying to find the first customers. I think going out there and trying to raise funds from, when the ideation
It's
stage,
costly.
it's too costly. And think about it, not is it costly that you have to actually put in cost of building that prototype to the level that investors want, but it's also that your time, right, the time and effort that you spend that you could have spent elsewhere trying to market, even to give it away, or like the beta users, not to give it away, but to have your software more tested, get your word out there, get that visibility, right?
So I absolutely agree with you in the sense of like that partnership, right? It's so important, and that a lot of founders miss out because the way that the startup ecosystem today is all about fundraising.
Yes.
It's about being charismatic, that beautiful deck. It's about either that, or it's about like, how do I make money out of customers? And then you get into that spiraling situation where you're just constantly you're looking about money. You're just thinking about money. And it is important.
Yeah, it is. Money is important.
But you miss out the other more important part, which is the partnership part, which is not, you can't quite put a finger into what is the value until much later. Because at the beginning, it's sort of like navigating through murky water. I don't know you, you don't know me, but it takes two hands to clap. And we just kind of really, but once you clap, there's just so much leverage of opportunities that we can help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like how we started as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because there's never you can think today that I want my company to be like this, but I think it's always the best thing to explore every possible way that is I think what we agreed on was that having a startup is like having a baby, right? And finding a partner is like marriage, right? So you don't jump into marriage when the relationship on the day one. You got to be so careful because because a marriage, when the marriage breaks apart, the baby is gonna screw up, right?
Well, as a lawyer, you would definitely agree that it's cheap to get married, but it's expensive to get a divorce.
Absolutely.
And a partnership is the same thing. I've formed partnership with other organizations where it's gone terribly wrong, and it was just very rushed. It was very fast. It does take some time to really get to know each other, to establish that your interests are the same, your perspectives are aligned, and that you are in this, you share the common vision, right? I've seen people I've actually been involved in quite a few partnerships where their interest was not aligned with where I saw us getting there. And if we're not aligned, then we'll always be speaking different languages, we'll always be in conflict with each other. And that goes back to the need to protect yourself as well, because legal terms are important, but when it comes to like partnerships, there is a fine balance between relationship and like the actual like protectionism.
It's a bit like, does a prenup prevent the divorce?
Yeah.
No, not really.
You don't bring up a prenup on your first date.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So it's a bit, I think, it's like a prenup, right? You signed it to, when we break apart, we're gonna. But the thing is, I remember I was sitting down with a lawyer who was sort of like mentoring a bunch of startup founders, right? And what they said was that, the moment the founders come and see me, because they start to have disputes, right? And investors start to smell it, they're gonna run away like so fast. You're gone by wind, right? Because these are really what break the companies apart.
Well, it's the number two reason. If you Google online, number one reason why startups fail is because of they're building something that the market don't need, right? The second reason is co-founders issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it everywhere. And it is really difficult though. I mean, I have to say it's not easy. I mean, you have to really be patient, take time. And also another thing that I have to say, I mean, because I also had different startups that failed, and a lot of it is, I found, partners that didn't really, because you can't really do it alone either. You can't raise a child by yourself.
No,
I mean, you can. I mean,
it's hard.
It is hard.
No, you can't.
It's hard.
Raising
when
a
you don't have the resources. Imagine, like, it's hard as, if you're a single parent, but you don't have any income, how are you going to do it, right? So you got to have the combined efforts. But at the same time, I think it's important that you and your partners share the same vision, right? Same vision for the company. It's like, I want the child to grow up to be a doctor, engineer, or whatever, the artist or something. You got to have that common vision, but I think there's got to be different roles. Like two founders cannot have
I would also say
Yeah.
common vision, but in terms of like getting different type of perspective and background to be
Absolutely.
able to
Complement
share,
each
complement
other.
each
Yes.
other. When you have people who are not, in the best interest of raising this child, which is in the startup world, making a resilient and successful startup, you're gonna end up with very bad advice, very bad guidance, costs, and also opportunity losses for a lot of founders.
Yes.
So, I mean, today I think it took a very different turn on what we initially wanted to discuss. I think initially the topic segment was about we were looking at the different ways of fundraising, because tonight that was where the focus was gonna be, the alternative ways that founders could explore. But I think a much more interesting subject is, how do you protect yourself?
Yeah.
What are some
And
of
what
the
is the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
The reality of what really gotta work on.
And what are some of the resources that you can easily get access to very cheaply,
Yes.
versus the one that you do have to pay for it? There are certain type of, and there are a point in time where you do have to have a budget to pay for it, because there is, you pay peanuts to get monkeys, right? But you do want to get professional advice and professional, but
Absolutely.
you have to be very careful and strategic about how you spend your money.
Absolutely.
And that is a fine balance.
Or is it necessary?
Is it necessary?
Yeah. Can I do without it?
Yeah.
If you can, do without it,
So what would be your parting advice for startup founders?
For startup founders, I would say fundraise when you absolutely need to.
Yeah.
And because either you think that is really gonna scale you up and you're ready for it, and I would say even before you fundraise, think really hard about why you're fundraising and what you want to use with any money that you fundraise, and be really careful of obviously the legal aspects of protecting yourself, but also giving entering into a right partnership with the right investors.
Yes, absolutely. So next coming on, we will be bringing in various guests for the next couple of weeks. There will be everything from startup founders to corporates that are in the sort of startup slash blockchain slash technology space, with various different type of topics that might be of interest to our guest. And hopefully that we'll get some good insights.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm Gustavo Leo, and
I'm
this is
YunSil.
my co-host YunSil from the eCast, and we look forward to seeing you next week.